Good afternoon. Anybody need to stand up and stretch? Stand up and take a quick stretch, do a big yawn, and then I promise that I will be to the point. That feel good? Thank you. See, I don't have to say anything. You'll give me an ovation if I get off the stage. I'm Kathy Engel. I am the chair of the Transit Coalition, North Texas Transit Coalition. We are a transit advocacy group. We were formed several years ago to educate, advocate, do our best to expand the opportunities, breadth, width, reach of transit options in the North Texas region. I want to thank you, Meredith and Peter, Charles Gillette, who asked initially if I would be interested in speaking here today for this opportunity. We have, and you have heard today throughout the course of this meeting, about a lot of exciting things happening across the region, across North Texas for rail. You've heard about Texas Central Rail, our high-speed rail that we hope, no pun intended, doesn't get derailed in the legislature. You've heard about DART and its wonderful opportunities to move forward, opportunities provided by the Dallas City Council to move forward with a subway as the second alignment in downtown Dallas. TexRail recently had their a ceremony, the T, celebrating the signing of a full funding grant agreement for TexRail, which you heard mentioned today, going from downtown Fort Worth to the airport. So we have a lot of momentum, and of course one that is close to my heart, the Cotton Belt, which the Dallas City Council would have preferred did not get included with early implementation by the DART board, but which is proceeding nonetheless. So given these things, you might ask, why do we need transit advocacy in North Texas? And that would be a logical question. It sounds like we've got a lot of support for transit. But any of these plans can be derailed. We've seen it before, multiple times, and our precious legislature, of course, is meeting. Grab your wallets. Things that can happen to derail, you are very aware of them. Political jurisdictions can fail to grant or refuse to grant eminent domain for right-of-way, alignments, and stations. Political jurisdictions can pass resolutions denying you a certain alignment or choice of technology. Diversion of sales tax monies that are designated for transit can occur with a vote and a pen. The federal government can fail to make good on promises to invest in a failing infrastructure and either not budget for or not appropriate for huge capital infrastructure projects that will not move forward without help from the federal government. And that could be TexRail, that could be the Cotton Belt, that could be the D2 alignment, that could be Cap Metro, that could be any of us in the middle of a controversial project, and they're all controversial. Now, I feel like I'm singing to the choir. This is a room full of people, unless there are plants in here I'm not aware of, that believe in mobility options, believe in passenger rail options. You don't take convincing, and it seems so obvious that it should be a part of the solution. Why should our elected officials, our public officials, need convincing? Well, Isaac Asimov said, there is a cult of ignorance in the United States, and there always has been. The strain of anti-intellectualism has been a constant thread winding its way through our political and cultural life, nurtured by the false notion that democracy means that, quote, "my ignorance is just as good as your knowledge." We have people in public places who do not know what good transit and rail does us and do not care to become educated. And if we are to succeed in moving these projects forward, we have to make certain that we advance their knowledge of the necessity of rail and transit in moving people in this state. And that is not an easy job. In our organization, we began to realize what many of our elected officials did not know or believed incorrectly. Let me give you some examples. We have state legislators who are in print opining about the state spending money for transit. The state of Texas doesn't, with rare exception, spend money on transit. It doesn't come out of the state coffers. We have elected officials who believe that only the transit-dependent ride transit. But DART, Chad would be proud to tell you, has found that 60% of their ridership are choice riders. They're there because they choose to be, by lifestyle or convenience. Choice riders, 60%. We have rural elected officials who aren't familiar with the mobility challenges of the cities, or if they are aware of it, are not inclined to do us any favors. There are those who think that if we turn down federal funds for big capital projects, that maybe our taxes will go down. It goes the next state over, I heard that. It goes to Denver or LA or New York or Portland, you name it. Other cities we're in competition with. There are those that believe that we can keep adding highway capacity. Yet the highway folks will tell us, one, they don't have the money, and two, if you look at just the DFW area, almost every major freeway is at capacity. There's no right-of-way left. You can go up or down. There's no real appetite for that. We can't add lanes. There are those who believe that roads are cheaper in the long range than rail. But we know that once you have the capital improvement of a rail line in place and implemented, that you can up your frequency, you can add cars, and the incremental cost is negligible, with a negligible impact, if I can get that word out of my mouth, on our environment. There are those who don't realize how important transit is to Fortune 500 companies and their employees who are looking to relocate, bring investment dollars and jobs. There are those with no ability to grasp how explosive our growth has been and how explosive it will continue to be. It has been frequently said that the DFW area is adding a city the size of Lubbock every year. Can we build our way out of that with roads? And then, of course, there are those who just don't believe that anyone really wants transit, which means they don't really want transit. Some of that we know is demographic, some of it is generational. My kids welcome transit alternatives if they're there and convenient and take them where they work. For these reasons and many more, TC&T, the Texas Coalition, Transit Coalition, and its partners have decided to do an advocacy outreach program, a transit education initiative that we have just launched called Accelerate Transit. It's modeled after the APTA campaign, Voices for Public Transportation. And those of you who followed the last, get this out of my mouth, long-term transportation funding bill, we'll know that APTA and Voices for Public Transportation were instrumental in gaining the amount of impetus and public input to get a long-term bill finally passed. We have an interactive website, acceleratetransit.com, that will enable us to push information regarding potential legislation or regulations that could harm our projects, to push that information out to you. It will help organize a public response to potential legislation. It will help identify advocacy volunteers and give you a way to focus that energy and your efforts. We will use acceleratetransit.com to correct misinformation. And I hope that we will use acceleratetransit.com to report on our successes. I'd like to show you a short 1-minute video that we have that we hope to use in the legislative session to correct a few misperceptions and to focus attention.
We are 12 counties, more than 150 cities, over 7 million, and we're growing more each day. We are North Texas. What keeps us going? Our trains and rails, roads and buses, stations and lanes. They connect us all together. They're the heartbeat of North Texas. Each day, the number of people riding public transit and DFW could fill up Cowboy Stadium 2.5 times. More and more, Fortune 500 companies are choosing DFW locations because their employees demand access to transit. And with our population swelling, our highways overflowing, public transit can help keep us going. So we all have to get on board and support legislation that helps us expand our capacity and serve even more people. To do that, we need to plan. We need funding to build the right infrastructure. And most importantly, we need you. You're at the heart of everything we do. Please join us by visiting acceleratetransit.com today.
Not fancy. Thank you. We just posted that day before yesterday for the first time. We also have legislative leave-behinds, fact sheets, each with a common theme, whether it's economic development, TOD, jobs, housing, each dealing with different elements of what transit, good transit, usable transit brings to a community for us to use during the legislative session. So what will make this a success? You and your friends and your coworkers and your constituents, the stakeholders of our community. If you want this to work, please follow us on Twitter at TransitNTX, TransitNTX. Like us on Facebook. I want to see these pins going, and then I'll let you out of here. Like us on Facebook at Transit North Texas, Transit North Texas, and visit our website, acceleratetransit.com, to get involved, to register, and to volunteer, and to get current information. So Twitter, Facebook, and Accelerate. I had copies of some of, or was to have had copies here today of some of our leave-behinds, and they literally were to have been hot off the presses. And so I guess they got burned up or something, because they aren't here, but I am. So we hope to have those in your hand very soon. Let us know also how we can help you in your constituencies. If you're a member of Rotary that you think could benefit from knowing more and dispel some misperceptions or mistruths, please contact our organization, and we will do our best to have a speaker there to make a presentation. So please keep that in mind as well. So to end, I might say to you that you might look at a 1-minute video and say, that's so small, this effort is so small, what can that do? How can this succeed? What has to happen? So you will bear with me in reverting to a childhood story, which being railroaders is probably one that you heard many times and loved. The little engine that could. There was a little engine in a rail yard, and its job was simply to move trains from one track to another and not deployed to move a lot of weight any distance or elevation. But one time there was a long train, and the long train said to the big engine, will you pull us up that high hill? And the big engine said, no, I cannot do that. It is too far, too high, and too much weight. Another big engine was asked, can you pull us up that hill? And the other big engine said, no, I cannot. In the end, the little engine was hitched to the train and said simply, repeatedly, I think I can, I think I can, I think I can. And as it crested the top of the hill and began to descend to the other side, it said, I thought I could, I thought I could, I thought I could. You can tell I'm now a grandmother, right? So join me, join this effort. We can. I think we can. We think we can. Please join me, join us in saying and doing so. And on the other side, we will say, we thought we could, we thought we could, and we did. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to see you today, and what a great conference. Thank you.